Welcome to the Amazing Authorities Podcast, where game changers, visionaries, and category leaders share how they built their brands, platforms, and global influence. Your host is Mitch Carson, international speaker, media strategist, and creator of the Instant Authority System. If you're ready to learn from those who've done it and want to become the go-to expert in your space, you're in the right place.
Julia Rock is in the house. Now, she's got one of the best names of anybody I've interviewed because pardon the pun, I can't resist, Julia. You're going to get rock solid strategies today on leadership, on TEDx. She's a TEDx speaker and she's a Substack specialist. And that's how you build your foundation in life, is with our amazing authority expert today, Ms. Julia Rock. I don't know if she's married or not, so I went with the safe description there, prefix of Ms. So she can fill in the gaps. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Mitch, for having me. That was an awesome introduction. And it is Miss, so I'll just clarify.
Oh, okay.
It is Miss.
All right. I don't know. I mean, you're an attractive woman. I don't know. Could be Miss, Mrs., Ms., could be hey you.
Fair enough. But I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
So when, I mean, your name is great. I do have to play off that. Mine is straightforward, not as interesting, but Rock. There's The Rock, there's Dwayne Johnson, and he uses that, but it's your birth name, right? Is that your birth name?
It is my birth name. Got it from my dad.
Got it from you thank your father. He gave you a solid name.
Thank you.
How did you fall into the leadership space?
Man, because I started helping with career coaching years before. I mean, in college, I started my business while I was still in college and helping people for free. And I did it for free for 7 years before I started charging people.
Wow.
And so over time, though, as I was helping, I was expanding the services I was providing. And as I was progressing my own career in corporate and in leadership, I realized that what I was seeing and what my clients were experiencing were one and the same. They were having struggles with their managers. They were feeling burnt out. They were feeling like they weren't building good relationships. And I said, okay, everyone seems to be having the same problem. So this is an opportunity for me to fill a gap to help leaders be better so they can retain their people. And for me, because I was seeing it real time on the ground, I could provide leaders with actual proven strategies that work versus, HR theory that I got from a textbook or some certification program.
Wow. And when you say you started doing this in college, back me up on that. You were a student, or were you a student counselor, or what was the deal?
Yeah, so I was a student. So my business school in college, they had their own career services center. And because I really wanted a job after graduation, I kind of just lived in the career services center. I soaked up every workshop, every program. And as I soaked up that knowledge, I was then able to help family and friends and classmates with preparing for job interviews, preparing to be successful at work, because I was taking what I was learning and sharing it with them. And so for 7 years, I just refined that. And like I said, I did it for free until I coached one of my friends to his first 6-figure job. And he said, Julia, thank you for the free help. I'm grateful, but I think you should probably start charging people.
Oh, light bulb moment, huh?
Yes.
And how old were you at this point? This was right after college? Yeah.
No, I went through college, I went through my first career in financial services, and then went back to grad school. So I had to be 28 then.
Oh,
28.
Okay. So, all right. So you have a financial services background. Were you a stockbroker or a financial consultant, or what?
So I actually worked in credit cards first. So I worked in credit cards, and then once I went back to school, I came out and I was working in finance, but in the energy space. So I worked for one of the big majors, and I was in their finance and accounting space.
Okay. And then when did you go full time into the coaching and leadership trainings and public speaking?
Yeah, so I went full time last year, March 2024. So March 8th, 2024 was my last day on the job. And I tell people that it was definitely a difficult decision because I had a lot of a large scope. So my last job, I was responsible for about $23 billion in operating expenses as a global finance leader. And so walking away from that kind of an opportunity, it's not an easy one, but my client load was getting bigger, and I realized that I had to either serve my clients or I had to stick it out in my corporate gig. And so I just decided to bet on myself and go full on with what I believed in my company.
Any regrets?
No, not one. Not one.
Boy, your eyes got big on that answer. If you're listening to
Gotta
this,
be honest with you, Mitch.
yeah, when I asked that question, if you're just listening and not seeing, Julia's eyes got, I saw the whites of her eyes enlarged huge, just like, whoa, no, no, I don't
No,
miss corporate America. I'll just
not
extract
one
money from
bit.
it now. All right.
Exactly.
Well, that's no. It's I respond sometimes when people say, "Don't you miss working?" I say, "No, I'm unemployable now on so many levels."
Yep.
And I couldn't imagine getting bad advice from somebody who's managing me today because as an entrepreneur, as someone that has to wear all the hats, you know where things go wrong. And
Yep.
how do you go back to that situation? There's nothing wrong with working in a company. Of course, it's safe, secure, and you got a paycheck. But to then
Mhm.
take the leap and be on your own, it's a bit scary and it's also tremendously freeing.
Absolutely. For me, the biggest win with taking that leap is the freedom to spend more time with my loved ones. Being in the finance space and then leading a large team. I used to live in Argentina. I was leading a large team, a division in Argentina,
Oh,
and
that's
so
cool. Huh.
so thank you so much, but I was away from my loved ones for 2 years, and so now when I have this freedom, my parents, they live in Barbados, so I can pick up and go be with my parents, and I can still coach clients from there. I can do virtual trainings from there, and so having that freedom, I mean, the idea of going back to work and not having that freedom, I'm gonna have to be rock bottom, real to the bottom.
Well, and would any money thrown at you change that, or would you just say no? You're happy with what you're making now, and because of that freedom, that is a paycheck. That's a huge bonus, a definable one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sure, more money would be great. We'd all want more money, but what do you have to give up to have that money? And I think about the career that I had and the fact that I made great money in corporate, but I had to give up so much of myself, my time, my energy, time with loved ones. Going back just for money, it's just not a good enough reason. It's just not.
No, I get it. And sometimes I get out of nowhere on LinkedIn. We were talking about LinkedIn a little bit
Yeah.
earlier. These jobs in corporate being thrown at me for VP of marketing, CEO jobs or something. They scan my background and I mean, I would be one of a multitude of applicants. But the
Right.
money, I think, wouldn't it be nice? I don't have to scratch, collect, do all of this sometimes. And then I say, nah, I think I'll stay right where I am. I'm doing just fine. I wake up when I want. And well, no, I do wake up early. I'm still a 4 a.m. person. I do
4
that
a.m. Wow.
every day. That's
Wow.
an
Okay.
inviolate rule. I've done that since I was in college because
Wow.
I worked myself through college with a job that started at 6 a.m. on the other side of town, but it was a good discipline to follow. So talk to me about how did you get into, why did you choose to do a TEDx?
So it's funny because I always wanted to expand my speaking because I had done public speaking before, but I just had this dream of what would it be like to be on a TEDx stage.
Mm,
And it was one of those kind of bucket list things that could I do this? Could I do this? And so I worked with a coach. So I'll be honest, I'm not going to say I did it all by myself because it's not true. I worked with a coach who helped me with preparing for that process. And I'm so glad I did because for me, it wasn't just the TEDx product that came out, it was the process of transformation that I personally went through. I was able to improve my storytelling skills. I was willing to be more vulnerable in my speaking. So there's a lot of that goes into putting a TEDx together. People just feel like you just write something and you go up there. But if you're
Mm.
really putting together a good talk, you should be going through a process of transformation through that as well, which I did, which really has helped me with my business now in terms of how I show up in everything I do. The keynotes I do now, I pull on those TEDx principles.
Well, I've interviewed quite a few TEDx speakers, and I mentioned that I have a upcoming podcast specifically for TEDx speakers and organizers
Mhm.
because I did one TEDx in Kuala Lumpur a few years back and found it interesting. I was the only professional speaker. I've been on stages myself 41 years, traveling
Wow.
the world. Yeah, long time. So I thought TEDx was the only unpaid gig I have done in 25 years. All the others are paid or my own events. And I
Okay.
did it just to tick the box, so to speak. And it was interesting, and I went 17 minutes and 58 seconds, which just hits underneath the
Right
18
under the
max.
18 minutes.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I'm very timed. I mean, I teach public speaking. So this has been one of my bread and butter workshops. And I did this just to and I learned when you mentioned transformation, personal transformation, I saw that with others. I've been speaking so long, I didn't get that because
Okay.
I've been doing it so long, but seeing how other people have gone through that, because usually it was their first time. It was their
Mm.
first time doing something or performing to a crowd with constraints, not from their high school biology class. I dissected the toad and I found the following. There's a story to that. I saw its guts. How exciting. That's a different deal than what you're talking
Right.
about. But you said it
Right.
gave you some ingredients to be more effective as a keynote speaker.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me
Because
about that.
sure. So I found that when I would speak before, I
Mhm.
had a tendency to reserve certain things or to kind of hold back because I didn't want to show a certain side of myself. I always wanted to be very polished and just wanted people to see a certain view of me. And to put together the kind of raw TEDx that I did, extremely vulnerable, I had to be
Mm,
willing to let that go. And how that has helped me now as a keynote speaker is that the stories I'm able to tell on stage, they're so much more poignant and they relate better because I'm not putting on a mask. So someone who's sitting in the audience is able to say that was me or that is me. And so I'm
mm.
able to connect with the audience a lot better and really have my messages resonate versus the super polished, holier than thou, I'm removed, I've arrived. It's a lot deeper, more raw, and it creates better connection.
You bring up a great point. Being raw, being vulnerable, you create connection. Because if
Right.
you are on the stage, you already perceived at a different level, albeit
Hmm.
true or false, it's just perception because perception is often the reality people choose.
That's right.
And I had been a speaker for 35 years in Kuala Lumpur, which my market has been Asia. I was at an event and I was selling my speaker training. And at the end, there were about 60 people in the audience. Somebody asked me, how did I get into the speaking business? And I told them it came through me overcoming drug and alcohol addiction in 1984. And I
Okay.
started to speak in AA and NA meetings on my road of recovery. I had never shared that publicly before. My private life I kept separate. So I agree with you about the story. So what was your vulnerable story? I just shared
So
mine. So it changed my career trajectory forever after that.
wow. And so for me, it was my story of burnout and workplace trauma.
Okay.
So I went through some workplace trauma that caused me to get severely depressed and
Okay.
suicidal.
Wow.
And I gained 25 pounds in 2 months. So you can
Jeez.
imagine how much food you're eating to
Oh
to
my
to to,
gosh.
to
How
gain
tall
weight
are
that
you?
much. I'm only 5'6".
Okay,
So
well, that's a lot of weight in for a body.
exactly.
Well, it's average height for an American, but yeah, that's a
And, and
lot of
and
weight.
in 2 months. And so, so being able to share where that was coming from, and the fact that I had to overcome perfectionism and overcoming tying my identity to my work and my accomplishments and my achievements. And so with the workplace trauma, that was threatened, and so that caused me to fall into that deep depression, and I felt like I was worthless. I had nothing going for me. I was an imposter and a fraud. And so like I said, I became suicidal, and I was literally eating my feelings to try to just keep myself alive. And so being able to share those stories with folks, they see themselves, whether they're burnt out or they're dealing with tough situations at work, they realize that there's something on the other side of it, right? And so that's the goal of the conversation, is that there is an opportunity for you to recover from that. There is an opportunity for you to find freedom and to find your identity and reconnect with that. You don't have to stay where you are.
How did you, okay, so you went through this period, and I can relate to, we have ups and downs. Nobody's life is like this,
That's
except
right.
Ozzy and Harriet, and that was a TV show. And if you even know, if you're not old enough to know, that was the perfect nuclear family, and they were always smiling, and it was all BS. But that's not real. How did you hit rock bottom? And I'm being somewhat humorous, but not. After you hit this spot of 25 pounds, 2 months, what did you do to correct that, or to rebound, to bounce off it?
Yeah, so just being very honest, I tell people the only reason I didn't kill myself, it had nothing to do with me. It was the fact that I know it would kill my father. And
Okay.
I couldn't take my father away from the rest of the family. So I kind of just had a moment where I stared myself in the mirror and I said, if you're not going to off yourself, what are you going to
Hmm.
do about it then? And
Okay.
so that was the moment of, I just have to try to put one foot in front of the other every day from here. And so whether it was that I just found one small thing to celebrate, oh, my hair looks nice today. Okay, that's a
Okay.
reason for me to keep going. And
Your
and
hair
it's
does look nice today, Julia.
Thank you so much. And so, but it was those small moments that gave me, that I was able to compound to get me through bit by bit, until I started to say, okay, well, how do I start to lose the weight, which was something for me to look forward to. So I found small things to start to rebound before I was able to kind of fully recover. But it really started with just looking myself in the mirror and say, okay, if you're not going to do it, then how long do you want to stay in pain? And that was really the turning point for me, and starting to find those small victories, and then thinking about, how do I change my life so this doesn't happen again? So that's where, reconnecting to, who is Julia Rock outside of her finance career, outside of all the accolades, right? Like what do I have to offer? If everything in my life is taken away from me, what do I still have to offer the world? And that discovery process, as I was finding those small wins, really helped me to start to turn my ship around.
So do you think it was a catharsis you needed to go through at that particular juncture in your life in order to be where you are today? Did you feel that, I mean, I've personally had to crack a couple times in order to grow.
Absolutely. It feels awful when you're going through it.
Oh, it
Obviously, no one
does. It
wants to be
sucks.
no one wants to be suicidal. But I think, had I not hit rock bottom to that degree, I would have
Mm.
probably stayed in the career that I had and never left to live my purpose in a full way like I am doing now. So as much as it was painful, I think it was absolutely necessary for me to connect with people and share this message around leadership and avoiding burnout. This is my purpose, and I don't think I would have fully realized it if life had stayed, great, and I was living my best life in corporate.
Was this the catalyst for you to make the change to go full-time coaching and career advice and workshops?
So it started the process. So it
Okay.
happened in 3 years prior to me leaving corporate.
Okay.
Because right after I rebounded from that is when I took on my expat assignment. And so living outside of the US and then going through that process together, it really was the push that I needed to say, Julia, yes, the business is going well and work is going well, but you can't do both. And beyond that, do you really still feel called to do this work in corporate anymore? And I realized that it's like, I can do it. I'm good at it, but I don't feel called to do this work anymore. And if you stay, are you falling back into the bad pattern of attaching yourself to the global finance leader title with the $23 billion and the expat? Like, are you going back down that path? Or are you willing to let that go and follow your purpose, even if all those titles go away? So it really started back in 2021.
Okay.
And then after I went through my expat experience, it kind of solidified right after that.
So in 2021, we were in the midst of the pandemic. So you went to
Yes.
Argentina in 2021?
Yes. So in fall of 2021, I moved to Argentina. I had been to the country before, but I hadn't had a chance to go and see any apartments or anything like that. So I was literally just going into the country blind. And that's when they were still kind of quarantining and
I
wearing
was going to
masks
say, man,
everywhere.
what a time to go.
What a time. So it was a very interesting experience moving to a country in the middle of a pandemic. And Argentina, they were very strict with their rules for a longer period of time than I think other nations were. So it made the process of relocating and getting acclimated to work very, very differently. In addition to the fact that I wasn't fluent in Spanish. So lots of obstacles, but it was one of the best experiences of my life for sure.
I was going to say, how did that affect you? I know I've lived in 7 countries myself and have had to jump up. And the first one's difficult, but then after that, it's lather, rinse, and repeat.
Yeah.
You learn how to adjust, and I think it creates a lot more intelligence in a person when they travel and see the world and experience different. Then it also helps you with the degree of understanding of cultures and differences. What did you learn from that?
Man, so it's that culture piece because
Mm,
the US we're so transactional in our
big time.
relationships and our interactions with others. And moving to a place like Argentina, it's not transactional that way. People want to know how you're doing. They want to know about your family. I'll give you a quick example here. So I went into the country, and as a division leader, I had an opportunity to meet with, new employees and kind of share words of wisdom and so forth. So I go into this meeting with my spiel ready to tell them about my career and how they can get ahead. And so when I open the floor for questions, I'm waiting for them to pepper me with those questions. And
Mm,
instead, I got questions about, well, how do you like Argentina? Are you
wow.
married? What do you like to
Wow.
cook? And so like
What?
no questions about, I mean, one person asked that one question about career development, but everybody wanted to get to know Julia. And that was a
It's
reset
shocking,
moment.
isn't it? Yeah.
It is. It was a reset moment for me. And I will say the other thing is it helped me to become less consumerist, honestly. So, in the US, we're always focused on buying something or getting
Mm,
something and, trying to acquire as much as we can. But when I moved to
stuff.
Argentina, it's just stuff. And moving to Argentina, it transformed how I saw life and realized that I had more than I needed. And so when I moved back to the US, I have found that I don't buy nearly as many things as I used to because I don't see the need. I'm content with the things I have. I don't need to amass a ton of stuff.
You are spot on. And I think that also helps us as managers lead better when we understand what's important and what's not. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and what's important and what's not. And how did you lead there? Was your strategy technique different with Hispanics? I would imagine you had a lot of local Argentinians under your umbrella versus expat or Americans like you.
Yeah, so my entire organization was Argentinian. So
Okay.
I was the only US Houston based person who had moved there within that team in
And a
that division,
woman
and a woman.
and an African American woman. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
you had a couple labels, didn't you?
Couple of different labels to navigate for sure. But what I found was helpful
Mm,
was my willingness to keep my door open for them to be honest with me, because I had a team of leaders who worked for me, then leaders who worked for them, and then we got down to the analysts and advisors. And so what I found was that with opening the door for folks to come and get to know me and realizing that I didn't have this holier than thou approach, I found that people were able to tell me what they were feeling and they felt less restricted. The other thing that I would say worked really well, which helped to win some of their trust, was they saw my willingness to go to bat for them. If they came with an obstacle of some kind, that I was willing to stand in the gap for them. I was willing to
mm,
fight on their behalf. And so and the other thing that I will say, two other things. One is that I stayed out of their way because I was new coming into their organization and their culture. I didn't want to come in there and try to transform everything to the Houston or the US way of doing things. I said the shop runs well, and so my job is here to make it better and to remove obstacles out of your way, but I'm going to let you run the shop, and I'm here to provide the oversight. And so the folks really appreciated having the ownership. And the last thing I'll say is my willingness to get to know people. And so I made sure that, in our team meetings, we had a chance to just go around and talk about what was going on. I would stop
mhm.
and talk to people because, again, it's more about relationship. So I went and I said, thank you for different things, small things, big things. I went and I made sure and I said, thank you. So all the small moments that many times leaders overlook, I made a concerted effort to make sure that they saw that I valued them and I valued who they were as people, not just as worker bees.
Well, those are some key takeaways. Very strict. Did you also learn the language?
So I learned what I'll call functional Spanish.
Okay.
So
Conversational.
conversational. So I didn't have the work vocabulary, but there were certain things that I could understand and I could greet everybody. And so a lot of the customs around greetings and so forth, I was able to adopt because I was able to understand those things. But the full on conversations, I didn't quite make it, especially in the business setting.
Oh, that's different. Yeah, Spanish is my second language, and I'm not bilingual. I'm fluent. So I lived
Okay.
in Peru for a bit, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, all Spanish-speaking countries, and they were distinctly different in their Spanish.
Yes.
Argentina is different, and all different
It's different than
cultures.
the Spain Spanish, which
Oh
I
man, I
found out
can't.
when I got there.
Yeah, the Spain Spanish is so difficult for me, and it is. I mean, I was married to a Cuban woman, and we spoke Spanish at home. We were both lost in Spain. It was that different. I mean, it was
Yep.
her very first tongue. So it does vary. For us who are native American English speakers, you go talk to somebody from Scotland. Good luck, buddy. How do you understand? It's like, would you speak English, dude?
Right.
Good luck. So that, yeah,
Yeah.
and culture, etc. So you adopted and adapted.
That's right.
You
That's
adopted
right.
and adapted and were more hands off. And you have found that when you show care, because I get the sense that it was connection and caring for them and treating them as humans as opposed to being their authoritarian leader. That seems to not work anymore, does it?
It does not work, and especially in cultures that center family and connection. So in the US, people will work from their deathbed. I've got to send
Right.
this last report before I croak, right?
Right.
But in Argentina, it was very common for me to get something that said, "Hey, Julia, I'm going to be late. I have to take my child to the summer camp." Or I need to work from home because I have something going on with the family. It was very common and it was something they were used to. And so that's what I had to adopt and adapt to, is understand that, hey, they center their family first. They're not working on their deathbed, right? They're going to prioritize, their family and what they need to do. And so when they found that I was willing to support them in that area and say, hey, work from where you need to, that's fine. I found that they saw that I understood them and I valued the fact that they have a life outside of work, which I feel like in the US, sometimes it feels like they think all you do is work and that's all you should care about, which is insane.
Well, it is insane, but I mean, I grew up in LA, now living overseas, and it took me being outside of the country to realize you know what? The U.S. isn't the center of the universe,
That's
and
right.
we are not the only ones.
That's
And it
right.
took a while. We comprise 4% of the world's population, yet a huge belief or indoctrination that this is the center of the world, and it's not. There are so
It's
many ways
not.
to skin a, well, the expression "skin a cat." I don't want to offend any of the PETA people, but Julie,
We're
how can
not being
people?
offensive, PETA listeners. We're not being
Oh
offensive.
no, no, I like animals. Julie, where can people get in touch with you to learn about how to hire you as a coach, how to work with you strategically as a corporate, and to run workshops and to hire you as a keynote speaker? I'm sure you rock the stage.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so folks can get in touch with me via email. So they can go to julia@rockcareer.com. That's my direct email address. Or they can go to the website, rockcareer.com. Or they can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Julia-Rock. So those are the three ways to get in touch with me the fastest.
And on LinkedIn, you are a voice.
Yes, I'm a top voice. So which is pretty cool. I got invited into the program, so
How did you
I'm
earn the badge?
so I was creating content on the platform for a while. And then someone from LinkedIn, one of the community managers, reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to be part of the Top Voice program?" I didn't even know that was a thing. And so she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, if you're interested, this is the process." And so I said, "Absolutely." And so I don't know what pieces of content she saw or anything like that, but I will say that I was creating content consistently. If you're showing up, once a month and that's kind of and you're hoping for the best, that doesn't work. You need to be on LinkedIn multiple times a week, creating valuable content and starting conversations, because that's how you get on the radars of the folks at LinkedIn.
So they contact you. Did you have to go through or jump through hoops in order to get that badge and banner, or did they automatically give it to you?
So once you're selected to that, I think I had to fill out some form maybe,
Okay.
but once, because they identify the folks they want to give the blue badge to. So
Right.
whoever it was had already been seeing me, so I got the blue badge once I completed the form and they did all their formalities on their back end.
And did you have to be part of their premium program? I think it's $1,000 a year, or no?
So no, that's so the $1,000 a year. I think that is the sales navigator, but
Right.
the premium one, that yes. So you're part of that. You're part of that premium package with being a top voice. You kind of have to be there.
Okay, so that is one of their qualifiers, just for people who are interested in learning about that. So they
Yeah.
have to be all right, premium. Well, you have been a premium guest, Julia the Rock. Okay, Dwayne
Thank you.
Johnson would be proud of you today. It's like you're part of his namesake. That's
Yes.
great. Julia, thank you so much for your time. And Julia at rockcareer.com, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's where we'll find you. And I'm definitely having you back for my TEDx podcast in the near future. Thank you for your time
Thank
today.
you. Thank you, Mitch. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Amazing Authorities Podcast. If today's episode inspired you, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps more experts like you rise to the top. For behind-the-scenes access and free resources to boost your authority, head to mitchcarson.com. Until next time, stay amazing.